So, hi, Alex. It's lovely to be on your podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me along. It's absolutely brilliant. My name's Angie Beeston, and I am the managing director of Evolution for Business, which is based in the United Kingdom. And you and I met through our mutual friend Elizabeth, who was interviewing you for her YouTube channel a little while ago, and obviously I saw your interview and was really impressed with what you're doing with your entrepreneurship so far. So it's fantastic to have an opportunity to actually talk to you. So my background, I used to be a PA years ago. So I was a personal assistant to a chief exec, and he was fantastic because I worked for Royal Doulton, which of course is a very well-known brand around the world. Royal Doulton, owned by Wedgwood, still exists now. And I come from Stoke-on-Trent, which is the potteries, and of course that's the world of ceramics. That's the centre really of it all. And my boss at the time was fantastic, and we were in the hotel and airline division, so we have clients like Raffles, people of that sort of calibre, British Airways, huge companies. And he was always very innovative and happy to try and support his staff and invest in people. And I went to him one day and said, I'd really love to do a postgraduate degree. So I did A levels as was at college, and left when I was 18 to go to work. And I got a language background, so I did a lot of languages. I just wanted to do business. I just got this taste for it. Doing the job I did, because I worked with him, and I had a commercial director and an operations director. So I worked with the three of them, and I just loved how much the feeling of business, the discussions, and I was forever getting into trouble for stepping over the mark and trying to do things I perhaps didn't have the accountability or responsibility for. And I certainly was tipping out of boundaries, but he was very forgiving because I did it for the best intention. And he was very, very good. He was so supportive. I went to him and said, is there any way the company will pay for me to start my management training part-time? So that's what Royal Doulton did. He was amazing, Phil, my boss, just brilliant. And it took me about 6 years part-time, and I did various different supervisory certificates, diplomas, and then business administration, and then I did my postgraduate, and the company paid for all of it. Now, in the meantime of this, I changed my job because Phil also knew that I wanted to get on in the company. So I actually fell into sales, really, the commercial world, and sort of suddenly discovered I really enjoyed it. So I had a job where I was a commercial assistant. So I was office based, but I supported the sales team who were based around the UK and Ireland, and just loved it because I met all the customers. They used to come to the trade shows I'd organise, factory tours, and it was just so interesting. So, really fascinating, that world. And it gave me another taste of business. And then somebody went on maternity leave, so I covered their role out on the field, and then that was it. I never looked back, and I ended up becoming an account manager and worked all around the UK, moved several times for them as well, and relocated. I left Royal Doulton, went to Ipswich, who of course part of Royal Worcester as well, so another world renowned name, fantastic company. But then I decided I wanted complete change. So I stayed in sales and I went into the car industry. So I worked for Toyota and did that for 6, 7 years. And again, it was great because that was on the corporate side. So I looked after fleet directors right through to selling trucks and vans to one-man bands, one-woman bands, just small entrepreneurs. Before I became a business advisor, I left there. I did about 7 years there. I left there and went and being a business advisor for small businesses was probably the best job I've ever had. Because as much as I loved the other jobs because it was all around people, when I went to become a business advisor, you had to be there to be supportive, helpful, build rapport very quickly. A lot of the time I didn't meet them beforehand. So I suppose it's a bit like Zoom world now, isn't it? But I would turn up and talk to them, find out what they needed, and they had an hour of my time for free because it was partly funded and supported by the government. It was an initiative. And it was really interesting because during that time, I was there about 4 years, 3, 4 years, it all altered because I got to work with, I think it was about 400 different companies. I added it up actually because I was curious how many people I'd looked after. And it was all the small little companies. but so interesting because all their different challenges they had, different businesses, you know, from sort of turkey farmer to beauty salon to a car dealer, all kinds of different sectors, but the same issues kept cropping up. It was about cash flow, people having confidence in themselves to build the business, adapting to change, all the human side as well that you'd expect. And just for them to understand that they've got somebody who looked after them and just supports them and had their back, really. I did see some ugly stuff too, some illegal stuff, which of course you quickly sort out and move it on. But it was a great grounding for me to learn about business because yes, you can read textbooks and everything else, and they're a great framework for academia, and that's fantastic because it gives you the grounding. But it's nothing like actually being with people who've run businesses for a long time. And so I had some fantastic advice from some people because when I left, I took redundancy actually because there was a big restructure, and I moved on. Thankfully, amicably, which is great because I went on to set up my own business. That's what prompted me. When the announcements were made, I was at a crossroads, and for the first time in my life, and at that point I was 41, just 41. I sat there and I thought, what do I do? Do I do my CV and go and look for a job, another role, fall back into sales, or do I do what I've always wanted to do and go and set up my own business? So I wish I'd dug this out because I could have shown you a visual. So you'll love this because you are very techy. You will really love this. So because we're only going back about, well, nearly 10 years now. So I started in November 2010. So what I did is I had 15 weeks from my end date of my job finishing to when it was sort of announced for the final date. So I got 15 sheets of A4 paper and sellotaped them all together. So massive big sheet. And I put week 1 and week 15 on each of them. They were all numbered. All of them were numbered. And it sounds crazy, but it worked because what I did is there's nothing like accountability. I've seen how big this sheet is with all these jobs you've got to do. And if I didn't do them all, because obviously I was still doing my own job full time, the company knew what I was doing. Obviously it was all very open and it was all fine. But I had to do all these other things. So I looked at week 15. It's start the business. And I had to work all the way backwards. So the first bit was registering it with HMRC, because obviously in the UK we have to do certain legislation like there would be in the States. So all the legal stuff was done. And then as each week went by, I tore the sheet off. So all of a sudden, these 15 sheets of paper became that. And there's nothing like having only a couple of sheets of paper left to think, oh my God, that's it. I am going out on my own now. And it was really interesting because it gave me focus to sort out the bank accounts, the business cards, sort out my accountant, bookkeepers, my systems, processes, everything I needed to do. And I was very lucky in a way that the job I'd had, because it gave me some ideas about what I could do with how to set up templates and where to find information. And I had a bit of a head start then. But I was very lucky. So I literally left my job on the 31st of October and I started my new job. That was a Friday. On the Monday, I started the company. So I didn't have any breather, went from one to the other. And it was absolutely fascinating. So I think it was 1st or 2nd of November, I think I started fully. So yeah, it's gone by in a flash, I have to say.
That's an awesome story. I love that you had your whole visualization. You're like, I have to finish all this stuff. And I think a lot of people, when they start a business, there needs to be that pressure, because otherwise you're not going to get there. You have to be accountable in that way to push yourself towards that goal. So that's awesome. You were able to just like, okay, I have to do this or it's not going to happen, or I'm going to be homeless and I'm not going to have a job, or you're going to have to go get a job. So I think that's awesome. You had that, and just the whole story that led up to, giving you, I think a lot of people stress or worry about being a certain age to start a business, but I think all the experiences we have in our life lead us to where we're supposed to be. So even if you don't start a business until, like we were talking about, like 75 years old, all of the life experiences you had before that prepared you so that you were ready and you can accomplish what you need to accomplish at that time you started a business. So I think that's awesome that you were able to go through all of those different roles, because I think it obviously prepared you to start a business and be able to do it in 15 days. So that's so awesome.
Yeah, 15 weeks. It was quite amazing, really, to sort of have that. Um, as you're right, with the pressure, because I think when you run your own business, and you'll know this because you're doing your entrepreneur work as well in between, it is that pressure. You have to be very self-motivated, very driven. And some weeks were pretty tough because it was happening during the summer when, of course, I live quite close to the sea, so I quite like being outside. But I had to be very focused that these tasks had to be done. And it was simple things like even registering domain names, capturing information, all the legal side, but also the other side of it, how am I going to market it, what am I going to do on LinkedIn, and having a real structure and a clear plan. And in fact, I came across it. I was sorting out my office a few months ago, and I came across this. I kept it, this great big sheets of paper, so I have got it. But I think at the time I thought I'm going to keep this and look back on it. And yeah, it's nearly 10 years old now. So yeah, it's quite incredible when I look back now to where it was to where I am now.
That's amazing. I love that you kept it. I think keeping stuff like that is just like you can look at it in a few years, be like, this is I did it, or this is my physical
Yeah.
thing that I have that represents what I did. So that's so awesome. So I love that whole story, just how you led up to becoming an entrepreneur, just starting your business. So what were some of the, I think a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs, they face challenges and obstacles and even their own failures in the beginning of their journey. What were some of your own challenges that you had to go through to really get to where you are today?
I think probably one of the biggest learnings for me was almost getting over this worry that when you invoice people, they should pay you. And it sounds really simple, but that has to be, even now when I'm business mentoring people, that has to be the one thing that people don't, nobody enjoys doing it, but you have to do it. Now, if you went shopping, you went out somewhere to the store, you couldn't walk out of there without paying for it. So why do some people think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't chase this money? Because one of the biggest concerns is they worry that they're going to have a relationship breakdown with the client if they chase money. And of course, that's the one thing when you first start a business, there is a challenge because you take on every bit of work because you need to obviously get cash and generate it. And I mean, you don't have a business without customers and without paying you. So I was very lucky at the time that when I started, I was right place, right time with some of my clients. I had very good relationships with very quickly, and I was really fortunate. The one thing I did do when I started my business, I've actually changed it now, and it was a very deliberate business plan. I wanted to do business mentoring and leadership training and leadership delivery programs. But the one thing I knew I needed to do is build up my gravitas because as much as I was known as a business advisor, that was under a known name. So of course, when you're on your own, I'm Angie, not, I haven't got this brand behind me anymore. I don't have a Toyota or a Royal Dalton behind me. I'm just me. And that's quite scary actually, because you suddenly realize, why will they choose me? Why will they pay for me? And you have to learn quite quickly that, and this isn't to sound arrogant, but you have to believe in what you do and be quietly confident. So it isn't arrogance, it's just that you know what you can do, you know you can help them, and you want to help them. So it has a value, of course. And if you can get your head around that, because that took me a little bit of time to just sort that out, because people will always be asking for discounts. People just do. We've stopped doing it now. But when I first started, that's what they did. And there was the expectations. I learned very quickly that people would push and push boundaries, and you had to be quite strong to manage those expectations. So when I took on a project, I learned, I was quite naive, I think, when I wrote these. I was going to do all this, but in this amount of time, it's not going to happen. So I had to really, my learning curve was quite steep the first year or so until it all sorted itself out. But you learn very quickly, of course, because you're learning on the job. So one of the things that I actually started to do was put in proper processes because I was finding that quite challenging. Like for collecting money, it's not that to particularly debt collect, but just making sure people paid on time, because that was quite frightening. All of a sudden, you've left a job where you get paid at the middle of the month or the end of the month with a set amount of money, and you don't. It just goes straight into your bank, and that's gone. It's just gone. If you don't invoice, you don't get paid. Well, if you don't get them, obviously they don't pay the bill as well. So, and I think after I had a light bulb moment, probably year two, start of year two, I realized quite quickly that all the clients I was working with, where it was very successful and we had a great working relationship, they paid me on time, sometimes early actually, if it was Christmas. They were really good. I realized that they were valuing what I did. I valued them, they valued me. Whereas the other clients, I valued them. I don't think there was quite the connection. It was a bit missing. And I don't think it was that they didn't value me. I think they were just trying to push things a bit. And we sort of had this rather than this. So I decided at that point that I knew the kind of people who got me and I got them. And that's what I've done from year two. I've always gone with that instinct. So it's almost like having your own tribe, isn't it? And you'll have this with an audience. You can't please everybody, but the ones who get you, it will work beautifully because there's just this synergy between you. It's a great relationship, and you can have difficult discussions, easy discussions with them, but it's a great partnership. So that was one of the big things for me that I learned very, very quickly, actually. But it was about that, managing expectations and making sure I work with the right people who, it's not that they were the wrong ones, it just sometimes we were just coming at it from different places. So it just didn't quite work. So we stayed friends, but we just didn't work together anymore, and we just sort of stopped it and changed. So that's a massive thing for entrepreneurs, is to be brave enough to step out of things that aren't working. It's not working. Why is it not working? Is it something to do with values? Because we all have our own values. Or is it something else? And I think, well, we talk about gut instinct, don't we? If it doesn't feel right, don't. And I sometimes went against it because I'm thinking, I've got a business, I need to get the money in. And it failed when I did that. So I learned quite quickly, that I shouldn't do that. So not right for them and not right for me. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's the right perspective, the right mindset to go at it, because if we try to please everyone, try to go with those everyone for a customer, I think we lose our value, we lose who we're really speaking to, because that's where I think niches come from, where we have that specific amount of people who we can serve and they really appreciate what we're doing, because there's going to be those people out there who don't understand or just aren't in that same mindset, in that same area, that niche of people. So I think you spot on with that. That's awesome that you're able to learn that pretty early on in your business. So that's awesome. So you talked about your business kind of pivoting a little bit more to what it is today. So do you mind explaining what exactly your business is and how you create value for people?
Yeah. So I, because I had a sales background when I started my business, I knew that I could do cold calling. Now, this is previous to the new stricter Data Protection Act that's in place in the UK, the GDPR as it's known now. So I knew that I could help small businesses to help them with marketing because of my background, because I've done marketing, sales, operations, manufacturing, all kinds of different areas. So I could sell that service, which a lot of entrepreneurs needed because they didn't like doing that bit. It's the stuff they didn't want to do, So that's the stuff they sort of push to one side, but it's really important, obviously, to sell yourself. So, but I decided, I had a plan that within 2 years, I would switch that over to be business mentoring, leadership training and leadership programs, executive coaching. So that's what I did. So I pivoted it exactly at 2 years. I kept a couple of clients because they've been very good and I did a bits for them. But predominantly I ditched all that side of the work and I passed it on to other companies then, and I stopped doing it. So I moved over to be doing a lot of business mentoring. And then I did quite a lot of that. And then I changed again and I added in leadership courses. We have something, I don't know if you have this in the States as well, I'm not sure, I think it is an international one, but the Institute of Leadership Management, ILM. I did some work with care companies, and I'd written a bespoke course, leadership course for their sort of junior managers, if you like, first time managers. And I got it accredited, so it's quality assured by the ILM. So it had a bit of kudos behind it. So that was a pivotal moment for me to change that because it elevated things. At the same time, I took my business to be limited as well. I was a sole trader, a small business. and I moved. I'm still just me, and I work with associates, but the limited aspect, it becomes almost a grown-up business in the UK. It's limited, so it's a legal entity now. So I did that in 2013, 14. I sort of switched. It took a while to switch over because of the legalities of what you have to do with Companies House in the UK. So I moved it all over. So my pivotal point really, so I work predominantly in three areas. So I work with individuals, teams, and with companies. And within those areas, with those people rather, I do coaching and mentoring, career coaching, outplacement support and services. For teams, it's workshops, training, and leadership programs. And then for companies themselves, I do a lot of strategic work. So I might facilitate strategic workshops, help them to work with their direction, the strategic direction, and around culture and values pieces as well. So it's a lovely connection because each of those sits with each other. So if you work in a bigger company and you're talking at top level with the board of directors, you can then start working out how to embed in the culture, the values, the behaviours, and everything throughout the company. So everybody sings from the same sheet, essentially. So that's really interesting for me to go into that. Obviously, it's had to pivot again this year. I'm a big fan of writing. I do write business plans. I mean, I preach this, so I have to do it myself. I've got to take my own advice. So I'd actually, before COVID happened, I rewrote my business plan in January because I was redoing my website. So because my previous one was just not good. It was just something. Most of my business has come, in fact, all of my business come from word of mouth and references and people introducing me. So I've never had to market. So the website's just sat there and you could tell. So anyway, I paid to have a proper website designer and I wrote all the content for it. And then, of course, I had to write the business plan to help me steer where the website was going to go, because I started trying to write the website without a new plan and realized it wasn't going to work because I'd changed so much with what I was doing. So I rewrote it. Then, of course, I commissioned the guy to start, Steve, to start designing it. And then COVID hit. So I'd written it for 3 years hence, so 2020 to 2023. So all the stuff I'd written in for 22, sort of end of 21 into 22, I had to bring forward to now, which was all the virtual, the online, the Zoom, all that side of it, which I had shied away from. I love face-to-face so much that I think I'd just got comfortable, dare I say. But I really enjoyed that side of it, is meeting people. So I still love that. But I think when COVID hit, we all had to change our businesses. We just have got to. You sort of do or die, don't you? You have to make these changes. So I just swiveled the entire lot and said, right, I'm going to have to go and learn how to do it. So it was a massive learning curve for me, which sounds crazy now. I'm saying this now 7 months on, and in 2 days' time, I'm delivering a workshop on Zoom, and I'm quite comfortable with that. And it feels like an entirely different world for me. And I feel sort of like a little bit proud that I can actually do that now, because it was like climbing Everest back in March when I started thinking, which sounds ridiculous. Well, it was. I'd heard of Zoom, that was about it. I didn't even know how to get on it. I mean, we're talking on Zoom now. So I've really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed embracing all the opportunities. Yes, it's been tough, but I've loved all this side of it because it's just all the new things that you can find out.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I think so many people had to transition and pivot and be flexible during this time to keep their business going or find any way to really reach their clients again. So I think a ton of people had to figure all this stuff out. Like, even I grew up with technology, but sometimes, there's things on Zoom I just figured out last week. So it's just like the background thing. I figured the background thing last week and I was like, we got it.
Oh yeah, the virtual background, yes, yeah. It's all changing, isn't it? And I know that You've got Teams and Zoom now fighting to be the best one. So they're constantly enhancing all these different functions. So I was on a training course only on Monday last week, which I paid to go on, advanced training about virtual impact and getting deeper level engagement. And it's really interesting because it's all changed again. Even 3 days later, Zoom had announced they were doing other things. So it's just constantly keeping on top of this now. But I mean, it's just brilliant because I think what it has done is allowed us all time to just step back and think about what we want to do and find that better balance. And it's the same for like all my clients that I work with, that I do coaching with. They've had chance now, a taste to think, how do I want this to be? You know, they love what they do, but maybe we don't have to just rush back to whatever we used to do. Why? Because we can make it different, you know. I think, and that's a big thing for me, is that making sure that people will do that. One of the things, I don't know about you, Alex, but when lockdown started to happen, and we were all in a bit of a spin for the couple of weeks while everybody thought about what they were going to do to, because I think originally we thought it'd be over by June, so that's clearly wasn't going to happen. But optimistic. So I actually wrote a list, because I quite like lists and mind maps and so on. And I wrote a list of all the things. I had a business list and a personal list. And on my business list was all the things that I wanted to learn more about, but I've never had time because I'm always busy. So I wrote a list for that. And then I wrote a list personal stuff, things I'd like to do more of, which is things like watercolor painting, because I love arty stuff, you know, making cards, that kind of thing. Because that's quite good for me to switch off my head sometimes. I don't switch off very easily. So that's really good. And also sewing and crafting and things like that. And then I actually wrote another list, which was things I'd like to have a go at that I've never tried before. So there was all these different lists I had, and they were great for me to really focus in. And one of the things I'd written in my business section, believe it or not, was writing a book. I wanted to write a book. I've contributed to 2 business books, but only as a contributing sort of, you know, just a couple of chapters or a case study or 2. So I haven't written loads, but I do love writing. So I started writing a lot of LinkedIn articles. I've used LinkedIn since 2003, and I've never written an article until this year. How about that? 17 years before until I write an article. I've written 5 now, I think. That's it. I'm addicted to them now. But the other thing is, I was very lucky because Michael Heppel, who's a world-renowned business book author, and he's a 6-time Sunday Times best-selling author. He set up lots of business groups on Facebook and pop-up groups. So as part of that, and through sort of that journey, I've got to know him very well. And I used to recommend, and I still do, recommend his work to a lot of my clients because he writes very, very good books. And one of the things that he did was set up a Write the Book masterclass, which I've invested in. So I'm in the middle of writing my own business book now, so on trust leadership, because I think that's one of the big areas that going forward, trust is going to be the thing that everyone's going to need to have, along with compassion and that side of it. So it's really exciting, really exciting.
That's awesome. You're getting ready for your book and just putting that part of you into business, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs think of it as kind of like a lot of people think entrepreneurs are kind of more just the business side of it, it's analytical, it's logical, but a lot of it comes from creativity, the innovation side of it. So I think that's so awesome you're able to put that into your own book, creating that and just relaying what you've learned so far. I think that's so important to do. So I think
it's interesting, isn't it? It's like, it's the compassion side, because you think about emotional intelligence, it's often, that word's often bandied around, and Harvard Business Review did some stats on this, and I can't remember how long ago it was. But they actually talked about the top leadership traits that are needed for leaders in general, not just entrepreneurs, but for leaders. And emotional intelligence was right up there with IQ, essentially. So the EQ, the emotional quotient, isn't just as important, if not more. And if you think yourself about the way that people are feeling at the moment, leaders, entrepreneurs are going to need to be even more conscious and aware of how they come across, and the compassion side and just adjusting is going to be absolutely vital. If you think about what's important to us, we've all felt a little bit displaced with everything that's going on, and there's no certainty, is there, at the moment? No one really knows what's going to happen next. So one of the big areas for me that I'm now working on, which is literally the last couple of weeks, it's become very apparent to me that because in the UK, in fact, it's been on the news today, that there's more talk about restrictions and lockdown in different areas, and there's talk that there might be another lockdown. Who knows? But without getting political. But the thing for me is that it's the team aspect, because if you're managing a team of people, and I'm not sure what's happening in the States, people going back to work, but here in the UK, some people are not going back, some are still working at home, and we're coming into times where British summertime will be over in about a month's time and the clocks change. So all of a sudden, we'll have dark mornings, dark nights, a very short day, and we've got all these people who are not seeing anyone. And when they are finishing work, it's pitch black outside. So it's difficult. The world shrinks a bit, doesn't it? And it's how our leaders support people. What are they going to do? And I spoke to a manager the other day and suggested, because she loves running, and actually suggested she spoke to her director to see if she could flex the working start time when she's at home and start an hour earlier to work, and then at lunchtime have extra lunch break so she can go for a run in the daylight, and then she will be fired up for the afternoon. So from an emotional, like a mental well-being and health, it could be really powerful for people, just to try and help them through winter, really.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice, especially since in the United States it's going to be like that soon, where it's like we'll have like it's pitch black until like 9, and then it like gets dark at 5, and you're like, where is that time where you can actually see the sun or see people? So I think that'd be super important. So just final, I guess I usually ask a question, but I think it'd be awesome for you to kind of have the floor to talk about just anything you want to, any inspiration, any promotion kind of thing that you want to talk about, just about your business or about yourself, to the people who really.
Thank you, Alex. One thing that I am focusing on more and more now is trying to help people to understand the motivation more. It's quite difficult to measure motivation, of course, but I've got some toolkits that I use, I'm accredited on rather, to help people to start opening up discussions. So, because I think if we can find out what's motivating us, it will be easier to start making decisions about the things we can do. So talking about what we've just been saying about what makes us happy, and it might be that it's people are quite happy to sit at home and do a jigsaw. We've done tons of jigsaws during lockdowns, we love them. But things like that, it doesn't necessarily have to be running or something sporty, but it's finding what makes people happy, because it sounds really cheesy, but it's so important that if people are happy, we're going to get a lot more out of them at work. So we get better engaged people, they're going to produce more, we'll have better company, we'll make more money, and everyone's happy. And I think this is the simple, it sounds really simple, but it's not easy to do. So I'm also, I use an assessment tool called the GC Index, it stands for Game Changer. And I've been using this. I got accredited back in, 2016, I think it was. It's a little while ago. And I'm a GC Global Partner. So essentially, this assessment tool, it's done online, it helps you to understand exactly what your contribution is to an organization. So it's about, and there's no right or wrong, we are who we are, and it allows you to start understanding what your strengths are, where you fit almost. And I actually, when we went to one of the conferences, it was eye-opening, because I was chatting to a lady who does consultancy in London. I'd not met her before, and she said to me, when you did this assessment yourself, did you suddenly realize, oh my God, this is where I fit in? And I said, yes. And now if I could have given that to my 18-year-old self, you would find the mojo straight away, because you know where your strengths are. We can't get rid of our weaknesses. We can dial them back, but I think it's impossible because we're wired the way we are. But that self-awareness and knowing what's important for me, it is really powerful, especially at the moment when people are feeling a little bit in a strange place. So that's something that I can do. I say it can be done online. So, and I say it's a really powerful tool to be able to offer to people, to say, where are my strengths? What can I bring to an organization? Because part of this assessment is that we all have a part to play. Not everyone can be a game changer. In fact, that's their strapline. Not everyone's a game changer, but everybody can make a game changing impact, which is true. When you think about it, we all need all the fit. So, and really going forward, the thing for me, I was thinking about what I'm going to be doing in the future, and a lot of it's going to be technology. So, very much up your street. So we might be talking again soon, Alex. And it's understanding sort of where I can go with my business, still helping my clients and continuing to support them, especially through the current climate, embracing that change, and obviously trying to write my book as well and get that sorted out. So yeah, that's going to be me over the next few months anyway, keeping me busy.
That's awesome. Keeping busy is so important, and I love that you talked about self-awareness as well. That's so key to basically everything in life, just being aware of what you're doing and how that could affect people and how you can bring value. So yeah, today was awesome. Thank you so much, Angie. I loved getting to know you and just sharing what your story and what you're doing, and I think you're bringing a ton of value to people. So if people want to get in touch with you or go see the GC index or anything like that, what you're doing, how can they do so?
The best way to do it is through my website, so www.evolution4business.co.uk, and I can send you the link, Alex, so you've got that, and then if you want to put that up there. But if you go onto my website, there is a contact page, and it tells you more about the GC index on there as well, and then I'm more than happy to obviously arrange to talk to people, because you can contact me through there. My email address is on there as well, so, and it's the number 4, Evolution 4, it's the number 4 business. So but cool. Thank you so much for today, Alex. I really appreciate talking to you. It's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.